This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heilar.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. On Fires of Heaven, Chapter 50. To teach and to learn, and our symbol is the flame of Tarvalin. Some 4 hours later, the sweat running down Nynaeve's face had very little to do with the unseasonable heat, and she was wondering whether it might not have been better if Nerys had gulled them, or refused to carry them beyond Boanda. Late afternoon sunlight slanted sharply through windows, with mostly cracked panes. Clutching her skirts in blended irritation and unease, she tried to avoid looking at the 6 Aes Sedai grouped around one of the sturdy tables near the wall. Their mouths moved silently as they conferred behind a screen of Saidar. Elaine had her chin high, her hands folded calmly at her waist, but a tightness about her eyes and the corners of her mouth spoiled her regal air. Nynaeve was not so sure she wanted to know what the Aes Sedai were saying. One stunning blow after another had knocked all her high expectations into a daze. One more shock, and she thought she might scream, and she did not know whether from fury or from pure hysteria. Very nearly everything, except their clothes, was laid out on that table, from Brigida's silver arrow in front of stout Morven, or the 3 Terengriel before Shiriam, to the gilded coffers in front of dark-eyed Myrel. Not one of the women looked pleased. Carlinia's face might have been carved from snow. Even motherly Anaya wore a stern mask, and Beonen's look of constant wide-eyed startlement had a distinctly annoyed cast. Annoyed, and something more. Sometimes Beonen made as if to touch the white cloth spread neatly over the Quendiar seal, but her hand always stopped and retreated. Nynaeve's eyes jerked away from the cloth. She knew exactly when things had begun to go wrong. The warders who surrounded them in the woods had been proper, if cool, once she made Uno and the Shinarans put up their swords, anyway, and Min's warm greetings had been all laughter and hugs. But the Aes Sedai and others in the streets, caught up in their own errands, had scurried along with hardly a glance for the party being escorted in. Saladar was quite overcrowded, with armed men drilling in nearly every open space. The first person aside from the warders and Min to pay any attention to them, at all, had been the lean brown sister they were taken to, in what had once been the common room of this inn. She and Elaine had told the story they had agreed on to Phaedron, said I. Hope I'm getting that close to right. Or tried to. 5 minutes into it, they were left standing, with strict orders not to move a foot or speak a word, even to each other. 10 more minutes, staring at one another in confusion, while all around them, accepted and white-clad novices, warders and servants and soldiers, bustled between tables where Aes Sedai pored over papers and briskly handed out orders. And then they had been hustled before Shiriam and the others so quickly, Nynaeve did not think her shoes had touched the floor twice. That was when the grilling had begun, more suitable for captured prisoners than returning heroes. Nynaeve dabbed at the perspiration on her face, but as soon as she tucked that handkerchief back up her sleeve, the hands returned their grip on her skirts.
Handkerchief? I like that one.
Handkerchief? Sorry, did I miss handkerchief? May have.
Yeah, it was a funny one.
She and Elaine were not alone, standing on the colorful silk carpet. Swan, in a plain dress of fine blue wool, might have been there by choice, if Nynaeve had not known better. Her face cool, utterly composed. She seemed lost in untroubled thought. Leanne, at least, watched the Aes Sedai, yet she appeared equally confident. In fact, somehow more self-confident than Nynaeve remembered. The copper-skinned woman looked even more willowy, too, more supple in some fashion. Perhaps it was her scandalous dress. That pale green silk was every bit as high-necked as Swan's, but it clung to every curve of her, and the material only managed to be opaque by a thin hair. It was their faces that truly stunned Nynaeve, though. She had never expected to find either alive, and certainly never looking so very young, no more than a few years older than she, if that. They did not so much as glance at one another. In truth, she thought she detected a distinct chill between them. There was another difference about them, one that Nynaeve was just beginning to recognize. If everyone, including Min, had been ginger about it, No one made any real secret of the fact that they had been stilled. Nynaeve could feel that lack. Perhaps it was being in a room where all the other women could channel, or perhaps it was knowing that they had been stilled. But for the first time, she was truly conscious of the ability in Elaine and the others, and its absence from Swan and Leanne. Something had been taken away from them, cut away. It was like a wound, perhaps the worst wound a woman could suffer. And I figured I'd leave it there.
I've been following the actress who's going to play Leanne on Instagram, and good God, is she sexy.
Well,
it makes me go, oh, yeah.
I feel like Leanne's kind of a babe.
Leanne's, yep. She's,
I mean...
As someone's saying, the light side Grendel, the sensual...
Yeah, I can see it. And I also... And correct me if you think that I'm wrong, guys, but I always perceived Leanne in my head when I'm reading about her as she's not like some magazine model or something. I feel like she's kind of, isn't she described as sort of thin-hipped, but like she has a way.
She's willowy.
She's a thin lady. I guess maybe not my thing, guys, if you've met my partner. But I feel like the point that I'm trying to make is that what she has is not maybe necessarily the most desirable qualities, but she knows how to work them to turn herself into very desirable, which is perhaps even hotter. You know what I mean? When a person has a presence in a room.
Leanne did a bit of the pulling out the ponytail and taking off the glasses. It's like she was always hot.
Sure.
When she got stilled, she's like, you know what? I'm just going to flaunt it. People are like, oh, she's willowy. It's like she's a skinny supermodel.
Yeah.
And then she's trained to use every bit of that.
I agree. I guess what I'm trying to say is I typically wouldn't go for the skinny supermodel type. It just isn't my type. And I don't want to get too personal, but I feel like she has a presence. She has a way of working the room that can be sexy by itself. It's a power. It's a kind of power.
I've seen it in people where you walk into a room and there's just some people where they walk into a room and every head turns. Guys, girls, it doesn't matter who you're attracted to. You're going to watch that person because they are striking. And I feel like Leanne just has that power. Not only has that power, but she knows how to bring it out.
And the physicality can do that, but also the way you work a room, the way you work a group, that can change everything. Being very confident, and I feel like knowing your own body, feeling very confident, being in control of yourself and your own emotions can be as sexy as, whatever people are into or whatever group you're targeting with whatever you're highlighting about your body. You know what I mean? Just walking into a room confidently is easily as sexy as just being physically attractive.
Yeah, it's definitely, some people can mistake arrogance for confidence. And I think that that's where you end up with people like, oh, he's an asshole. But it's like, you know what? He's confident.
I always like to say, confidence is often misconstrued as competence. They are not the same thing.
No. As, again, current president demonstrates, he's very confident. He is not very competent.
Yeah, but did it matter? Well. You know how I feel, personally, but sure did get elected, didn't he? And to most human beings, what matters is confidence, and whether that makes you competent or not, people will misunderstand. And that's a type of power.
I've actually read some studies about that, about how, people are less willing to trust experts who will hedge because they are using actual data versus someone who doesn't know and is just willing to confidently say one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you need a pretty good education, or you at least need to be very well read to be able to question, in quote unquote expert on TV, if they just say that this is true. You would need to know a little bit about what they're talking about in order to question it, and most people don't, and that's not their fault. We all have our trades and specialties. We rely on experts to give us reliable information.
And speaking of reliable information, these women are giving a ton of it to the Aes Sedai, who are completely ignoring them, or at least dismissing their opinions.
Playing right into what we've been talking about all this time, that they're throwing away excellent talent, and not to mention insulting Swan and Leanne to their ultimate detriment, which is coming soon.
And the Aes Sedai, they don't see people who cannot wield the power. They see them as less than. And despite Leanne and Suan's vast experience, I really do think they view them as completely different people now that they've been stilled.
How foolish. Does this not seem so thoughtless? I mean, okay, now they can't channel, but they're still the same people. They still know all the things they knew before. Their memories weren't erased. They're not dumb now.
But that's not what people in the White Tower think. You know, they think that stilling really does... It saps your will to live. It makes you lesser. It makes you, a drudge, a drone, somebody who can't... it's basically like an addict who's just trying to get their next fix, but can't. You see
Absolutely.
them as disabled and just lesser than. So why would you ever give them respect?
But that's like why, I can't remember now if I said this or we turned on the recording or not, but like if you have the most talented, skilled general in the world and he's wounded terribly in combat and he's got to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, do you retire him or do you continue to use the brain that you were using all of this time? Like, it's not terribly important whether or not the general can hold a bazooka himself. That's not what his job is. And it is
somewhat important that he has held a bazooka at some point in the past, though.
At some point in the past, yes, to understand what can and can't be done, absolutely. But the general never needs to hold a bazooka again, or, I'm using bazooka as my example because gun doesn't really work as far as the one power goes. You can not just blow someone away, but blow a whole building away or more, depending on how powerful these channelers are. And the point I'm trying to make is just that, what does it matter? You need a grand strategist? You don't need a channeler. You have hundreds and hundreds of channelers. You need someone who knows who to talk to, where to listen to the whispers, how to figure out how to undermine Elida from the inside. You're not going to overwhelm the White Tower with sheer force. It's not going to work. And if it does, you're going to end up with a bunch of dead Aes Sedai. And good luck in the last battle. What you need, people smart, spies, you need to undercut her.
But don't forget that this rebel tower is also being run mostly by the Black Oddjaw.
That is also true.
So when we talk about how they don't have a purpose and they're ignoring it, like, you've got Shuriam, you've got Delana.
Frankly, my opinion of Anaya is low. She's not black, but she's not Black Aja, but she's...
Anaya's the head of the blue. Or what?
Always looking for a fight. It just seems like she's tough to work with, Anaya. She has your opinions, and if you're not going to do what she says, then she'll try to roll right over you, but she's never looking for an alliance.
More Aes Sedai arrogance, which again, I think we've speculated that's the Black Oddjaw, just like taking the tower to extremes. The Black Tower has made an effort to create an ivory tower out of the White Tower, an isolated place where everyone's arrogant, thinks they're better than everybody else. And by doing that, you're essentially cutting the White Tower out of society and making them less functional.
Right, they're viewed as others everywhere they go, even where in places where they're respected. They're viewed as others to be feared, as opposed to other places where they're viewed as others to be feared and attacked or removed at all costs. Even Uno cringes when Nynaeve says a thing or tells him to do something. Uno listens. He's a grizzled old soldier. He knows his trade, but he's afraid. Of course he's afraid, but in a respectful way, as opposed to the way White Cloak might be afraid in a angry way.
I see Nynaeve's in the room, and they're getting grilled, basically. They're trying to squeeze every bit of information out of them. And here we see that Nynaeve can actually, finally, for the first time, senses who can channel and who can't. I remember when we got that with Elaine and Egwene, they, sensed each other.
She's furious from the opening of this chapter. She's, gripping the cloth in her skirt and trying not to start barking orders, I suspect.
She's like, I've been in charge. Like, Nynaeve was in charge, and then she wasn't in charge, and then she was in charge again, and now she's not in charge. And she's like, I don't know how to deal with this stuff. She's emotionally all over the place. We've been talking about how Nynaeve has gone through an incredible emotional journey, apologizing for the first time, like really, being in Luca's circus was a big emotional evolution point for her.
Absolutely.
We get a little foreshadowing here of her just like, I wonder if something's been cut away, and foreshadowing for her healing Suan and Leanne, which doesn't occur in this book. That's in the next book. Lord
of Chaos, right?
Yep, totally.
Or toward the end of this chapter, I should say, when Swan and Nynaeve sit down. Swan tries to drive Nynaeve right away toward like, oh, no, this isn't a negotiation. Here's what you're going to do for me. And Nynaeve's like, oh, no. This is a negotiation, and I'll tell you why. And it's the first time, and Nynaeve even has the distinct thought, this is the first time in quite a while that someone tried to bully her, and she was able to defend herself effectively. She feels really good about it. And I've been bringing that up over and over.
It's because she stopped lying.
I have a soft spot for Nynaeve, and she has been getting pushed around a lot lately, and a lot of really rough things have happened to her, and you kind of have to take that into consideration in the way she's making decisions here. Nynaeve is afraid all of the time.
But I'm convinced she undercut herself by lying, and that's why she couldn't stand up to the bullying.
Why she couldn't stand up to Egwene.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she can stand up to Swan because she didn't lie about anything. She has nothing to hide. And so when Swan's like, listen, if you don't go along with what I do, well, I mean, we'll get there, then I'll tell the Aes Sedai this. And Nynaeve's like, okay, if you tell them that, then I'll tell them all of the things that you don't want. And Swan's finally like, all right, you can study stilling. You can use my brain to study stilling if you give me. She's finally able to be powerful again. I wanted to note that Nynaeve is kind of observing Swan and Leanne, and she tries to reach out with the power to look at what's happening, try to understand how stilling works. And Shiriam, I want to say yells at her, but not loudly. She says, "Did anyone grant you permission to channel here? Accepted?" Shiriam asked. I think that highlights very well that these two young ladies have been running around the world doing their own thing for all of this time, and it's strange for them to walk back into an environment where people think that they can tell them when or when not to channel or what. They sent the Black Ajar running twice. They sent Moghedien running away, and now they're going to come back to these women who have no idea what's going on, have no firsthand experience with the last battle that's kind of mounting already, and they want to tell her when she can and can't channel? That's a hard thing to stomach.
And they've been out of the tower for far longer than they were ever in it in the first place.
Yeah.
They were only novices for a couple of months, and then they were, like, on the road for, like, a year.
Kelsey says, these chicks are couch coaches. I really like that. These women were sitting comfy up in the tower, and then they moved away to Saladar in a political move to make Elida look bad, presumably, or because they didn't want to deal with whatever Elida did. And, I mean...
There was sort of the Battle of the White Tower. I mean, it wasn't just a political move. There was...
Sure, there was a battle for the White Tower.
A fight, and people died, yeah.
But this has been Nynaeve and Elaine's life and Egwene's life for this whole time. Day in, day out is you're under threat. You could die at any second. They've been living under this. I guess I just wanted to highlight how strange it must be to come back and bow to these people who have less experience than you do. Now, they may know things that you don't. There may be a lot to learn from them still, but I commiserate with Nynaeve.
And that's Nynaeve's whole rationale for coming back is, hey, if I come back, I can learn from these yellow sisters and learn how to heal, because they know more than I do. It takes her healing Suan and Leanne and Logain for her to realize, oh, I actually know more than they do.
She's surpassed them by far.
I've surpassed them. Yeah. No, not to say that once they learn her technique, they don't apply all the years of knowledge that they have and adapt it and do something. I think the yellow is actually once Nynaeve shows them how to the new method of healing. I think a few of them are actually better at it than she is. So it's one of those things where it's like, she may be innovative, but she's not necessarily the best healer ever in terms of I don't know how to describe it. She doesn't understand the human body as well as some of the older Aes Sedai, even though she's better at the magic part of it.
I hear you. Yeah, sure. And that's like saying, I don't know, the first person to invent X is not the first person to say, oh, well, that's an excellent invention, but here's how you would make that actually useful to people.
Right. The Wright brothers probably weren't the best fighter pilots.
Right, exactly. Didn't know nothing about jets, but they did design wings that would work, and no one can ever say that wasn't very valuable.
That they didn't invent the plane, even though we've made better planes, but the concept of pushing a wing through air and causing lift is just a crazy one.
Those guys were literally building stuff out of lawnmower engines, wood, and canvas. Their original design is what everything is based off of now, essentially.
The Orville brothers built it in a cave with scraps!
Carlinia says, you tell an interesting story. And we see a lot of doubt, a lot of, gosh, I don't know how good I would be able to stomach this. They're only allowed to keep the gifts the Panarch gave them.
Which is just the jewels and the silver arrow, which the silver arrow, by the way, wasn't actually given to them by the Panarch.
Right, they just don't know anything about anything.
That came out of Teleron Riyadh because it was part of Brigida. Which, by the way, how interesting is it? I actually, again, this is one of those connections I made during the podcast, that the Adom that Moghedien is bound in is created from the silver arrow that she pulls out of Teleron Riyadh.
So perfect.
And it's perfect. You are bound by your own fucking actions. You are only the arrow that you created, that was only a dream, is now the Adom that binds you to your prison.
And she could have either been shot with the arrow and die, or imprisoned with the arrow shortly afterward. And it's shortly afterward, because as we progress through the books, the amount of time that the books discuss is shorter and shorter. So Memory of Light is a few days. It's short. But, of course, it's 1,000 pages long, because we're just talking about what every character is doing over those few days. My next highlight is the Saladar 6 questioning them about their terengrial that they've acquired over time, which are 3 dream terengrial. I think that's all they have at this point. And the Adom.
Right, because they've got the woman in the amber, they've got the swirly thing, and then they've got and those both requiring channeling spirit, and then they've got the Twisted Stone terengrial that don't require channeling. Although, I think are they hiding that one? Or are they just holding... No, they're holding on to it. That's right.
Which one?
Sorry, the one that Varen gave them?
The stone ring the Saladar 6 are holding.
Yeah. They do give it back to them, though. Because she gives it to Suan that night.
At some point, yes. Swan wants to study with it. She wants to learn how to do this. Because Swan is a spy master. It's really what she's good at. Acquiring information and acting on it. So this going to read even the fleeting messages in a light of study, Swan will not let this go. She will not let that go. And we'll see that in a few pages, she pulls Nynaeve aside and she's like, this stone ring thing, this Teleran Riyadh thing, you will teach me.
and Slats has a good point.
It's not even a choice. She's like, I will fucking make you.
That if you can't channel anymore, this is one way to get power.
Absolutely.
It's a substitute for channeling for her. I've always thought that was why she became better at it than almost anyone else, is because she couldn't channel, so she put all that energy into learning how to tar.
Frankly, even when Swan could channel, kind of like what I was saying before. She used it rarely. That's not where her real power lied. She is like the head of a CIA or something. This is what she's good at. She's good at collecting information, judging it, and learning and figuring out a good way to act on the information that she can acquire. This is what she's really good at.
And she was head of the Spy Master Blue before she became Amyrlin. That might be part of why she became Amyrlin, is that she was so good at secrets and knowledge. Yeah.
So now she not only has all the connections that a Spy Master of the Blue Aja would have, but she has all the connections a Spy Master that the Amyrlin seat would have, and all of Leanne's stuff that she set up herself in the city of Tarvalon. Because I think, as Leanne said, if you don't know what's going on in this city that you live in, what does it matter what's going on in any other city?
And it makes sense that as keeper, she was keeping track of the local stuff while Suan was trying to manage the big overarching stuff.
The big picture, yeah.
And we get another hint that Varen's a black Aja here.
I did not catch that.
You say that this came from Varen Sedai? How is it that this was never mentioned to us before? That was not directed at Nynaeve or Elaine, but at Suan. Suan frowned, but not at the fierce frown Nynaeve remembered. It held a touch of diffidence. Varen never told me of it. I would very much like to ask her a few questions.
That's Swan's response.
And that's just like, and you sort of skip over that, but it's like...
Withholding information is sketchy. That's not lying, technically.
But Varen, Moraine, and Suan were in this together, right? Like, they all sat down, had a conference, and were like, yeah, we all know this is the Dragon Reborn. Let's support him.
What are we going to do about it?
What are we going to do about it? So it seems like Varen is trusted by Suan and Moraine.
Everyone, really.
But at this point, we've seen her lie to both of them, even if this is a lie of omission.
Yeah.
And we know that, like, she was doing this at the direction of the Black Aja.
Allowed the Supergirls to enter Teleran Riyadh, gave them away so that they could be compromised in the dream, although no one expected that they would have the best dreamwalkers in the world on their side, and some luck.
Right, because if they had never encountered the Wise Ones, chances are they probably would have died.
It always makes me wish the Wise Ones could have been active in the battles with the Forsaken a bit earlier. Like, what would have happened if instead of Nynaeve and Megiddian meeting in the dream, it had been Nynaeve and Amis versus Megiddian?
Well, we see that in the last battle. The Wise Ones fight Grendel, which is a pretty badass fight.
Totally. I love the Wise Ones.
Oh, and Wind Blows Over the Wall is saying Varen gives the ring to help out of her own initiative, but she can't. But she has to hold back the papers describing how it's used so that it sounds like she's
placed the women in danger rather than giving them a incredible tool that's, yeah.
They sort of grill Suan a little bit about, like, why didn't you tell us all this? And she's like, well, I can't tell you everything I know. Which is such the typical Aes Sedai bullshit when they're like, why did you lie about my mission? Well, I can't tell you everything I know. Yeah, it's because you didn't want them to know.
I didn't expect my hounds to show up here of their own volition.
And there was such a remote possibility.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good chance they were dead, but also, how could her hounds have even found out where she was? It's next to impossible. The only way they did is because they got the Dream Terangrial, which from Varen, which she didn't tell Swan about.
Yeah. The
only way the hounds were able to find their master is because of something that another master gave them.
Bambi has a good a good point that the fact that she gave her the ring right before her test, which caused the interference. I don't know if we talked about that at all back in the day, but the fact that you have to wonder if Varen did that deliberately. I don't even know if she knew that Egwene was going to get tested, though. That's my only... Do you think the timing is just like a total coincidence? But I could be wrong about that.
I'm going to agree with Aradia and say it's a moment that makes you look. It's hard to say that this was plainly an attack, or something akin to an attack. But it gives, I think, Varen the ability to say, well, this is what I intended. I intended to put them in these dangerous situations over and over again, because that benefits us as the Black Aja, I strongly believe that that was Varen's intent from the beginning, to give these women a very powerful tool that they could use over and over, but also give Varen the ability to personally claim that, and repeatedly claim that, yes, but look at how much danger they're in. All it would take is one competent person to walk in there and end both of them.
But you don't think it has
But no
anything
one
to
does.
do with the fact that the test was happening, the timing?
Oh, I don't doubt that would be, if I were Varen, one of the things that I would cite saying, yes, look at how much danger they're in all of the time now. I mean, the test is just one example of many times that they should have died. I mean, if Moghedian can't kill Nynaeve face to face, then what the hell is the Black Aja going to do? You know what I mean? See what I'm getting at?
Yep. Totally.
It gives her plausible deniability. And it gives her an ability to make everybody else look like an idiot. Like, I put them into this circumstance that it will be very easy to take them down. Why is everyone else failing? I set it up. I popped the ball up. All you had to do was do a layup, man. What are you doing? It's there. I served you, you know? The Seladar 6 talk about Teleran Riyadh, which is almost legendary to them. They know very little about it. Teleran Riyadh, Myrel breathed. Why? It has become no more than a matter of scholarly discussion in the tower. Almost a legend. And Aiel Dreamwalkers. Who would have imagined that Aiel Wise Ones could channel, much less this? Nynaeve wished they had been able to keep that a secret. I'm just going to keep reading a bit, because I'm so into this chapter and Seth has stepped away. Nynaeve wished they had been able to keep that a secret, like Brigitte's true identity, and a few other things they had managed to hold back. But it was difficult to keep things from slipping out when you were being questioned by women who could bore holes in stone with a look when they wanted. Well, she supposed she should be glad they had managed to hang on to what they had. Once Teleran Riyadh had been mentioned, and that they had entered it, a mouse would have treed cats before these women stopped asking questions. Leanne took a half-step forward, not looking at Swan. The important thing is, with these Terang Rial, you can talk to Egwene, and through her, to Moraine. Between them, you can not only keep an eye on Rand al'Thor, you should be able to influence him, even in Cairhien, where he went from the Aiel Waste, Swan said, where I predicted he would be. If her eyes and words were directed at the Aes Sedai, her astringent tone was plainly meant for Leanne, who grunted. Swan saying, "Oh yeah, good, look at that, you questioned your prisoners here, and you figured out precisely what I freaking told you was happening." God damn it, if you had just listened, we could have been on this, so last week. I feel Swan's pain a bit. Yeah, Slats, I know I keep saying it, and I understand the sort of bias that the Seladar 6 have against Swan and Leanne, but it just seems wildly irresponsible to me to write them off. I mean, gosh, it's like being the president of the United States or some other large important nation, and once that guy isn't the president anymore, you just give him the boot. You tell him to go F himself. You insult him. You insult his family. You treat him like garbage. And then what do you think he's going to do? He's going to go sell all of that information to your enemies because you just treated them like shit. That's how people work. And that's why retired presidents are followed around by the Secret Service for the rest of their lives. I mean, it's one of the reasons, but also they're kind of a national asset. We can't just have them being assassinated left and right. It makes you look weak. I get it. To not consider Swan and to even insult her and treat her like garbage is the worst possible move. She could leave. She could leave and she could go sell her information to someone else. You fools. You silly, silly fools. She could end all of you. Ridiculous. And, I mean, they're in a terrible position. They're going up against the White Tower and they have a little village in the middle of nothing. You need every tool you can get. Don't throw anything away. You're homeless people. That's what you are. Squatting in abandoned buildings. That's what these people are right now. You need every advantage that you can get. And the last president of the United States of America is an excellent advantage in all the things that person would know. And I'm just using that as a analogy for the last Amyrlin seat. She knows things that no one else knows. And you ought to understand that.
Do you remember which two Aes Sedai went off to the waste to chase ducks?
I actually don't remember.
They end up showing up in, I want to say, Camelin, and are part of the reason that Rand doesn't trust the group from Saladar, because there end up being more of them than he wants permission. Bera and Karuna?
They sent Varen and who?
No, Bera.
Oh, Bera.
And I know all the names sound the same, but they end up showing up and becoming helping Perrin at Dumai's Wells and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they add to the 11 Aes Sedai in Camelin and create 13, and it freaks Rand out, and he flees.
Fair enough.
You know, so just those. It's just one of those little D plots of these two Aes Sedai that, like, they get sent off in an early book. They travel to the waste. They start travel to the waste. Then they realize Rand's back, so then they head to him, and then it's just all this connections that you're like, wow, this thread goes back to like book 2.
And again, if these Saladar 6 would just listen to people who have actually been anywhere in the world recently.
And they've got a bunch of warders as well, because they're travelers, so they're 2 greens. And they had, I think 7 warders between them, 3 and 4.
That's a lot, but still, if they had listened to these women that they're questioning and didn't send off this half-cocked plan to threaten the Dragon Reborn, who, by the way, is backed by an army of, hundreds of thousands of Aiel? 7 warders. Wow. 2 Aes Sedai. Impressive. What are you going to do against an army of hundreds of thousands? You need to speak with this person, not threaten him.
Yeah. Well, and they were always there to be diplomats, I think.
Perhaps, but they played it badly.
Then they steal all the gold from the girls, which I guess is technically from the White Tower.
Yeah,
that's one of those weird things.
Tower's
Yeah.
gold.
What's amazing is how much gold is that they're able to basically supply an army. Like, the letters of writ were so much money. Suan gave them tons and tons.
The letters of writ aren't an amount of gold. They are whatever the Amerlin seat says. That's all they say.
No, that's different. There's 2 things. They get the letters of writ, which allow them to pull out gold. And then there's the bearer of this letter can do whatever I wanted.
I don't think there was a number.
No, there was a number.
Kirsten is saying 3,000 per writ?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, they have this note that says, whatever these people do, it's in the name of the Amerlin seat.
That's not the writ. Those are 2 different things.
I get that, but it's equivalent, easily.
Well, but they're not using the letter to get the money.
Sure. But if in the name of the Amerlin seat you show up at a bank, you have all the credit.
Not unless you
can take whatever you like.
I don't think that would necessarily hold up now that the Amerlin seat isn't Suan anymore. Or else they could just get Suan to write out a bunch of those. So, I mean, it's signed by Suan, so, that's... Whereas the letters of writ are just for gold. It's just a check. It's just I think of it like bonds, right? They bought bonds of a certain amount, and they can cash them in at any bank.
Sure, it's an old-fashioned check.
Yeah.
Yeah, Slats, I think you're right. But a couple of people have said it already. There were the writs, and there's also the note or 2 notes, I can't quite remember, that say, whatever the bearer of this note does is in the name of the Amerlin seat.
And don't forget they gave 1 to Matt, which is why they only have 1.
Which means, I mean, if you have that letter, you could also walk up to a bank in somewhere else in the world and say, in the name of the Amerlin seat, empty this bank account. And they would have to. Or suffer the wrath of the Amerlin seat.
Oh, have they already got the one back from Matt? I thought they got it back when he came to Saladar. But no, you're right. Egwene has it. Okay.
Oh, Egwene has the writ now.
Yeah. Not the writ.
The letter that says... One of the letters that... Kirsten writing LOL made me laugh. I just... there were a bunch of different damn letters.
Yeah.
But in any case, the Saladar 6 agree that they're all very useful, particularly now that they're trying to raise an army which can challenge the Shining Walls themselves. They're going to have to hire a lot of people, a lot of soldiers.
Yeah, and especially with Gareth Bryn staffing up. Elaine is very embarrassed when they say, you should have brought this Seanchan woman. And if we think back, she tried. She ordered her. She, in the name of the queen, you will come with us, Sarandon. And she just got humiliated. Yeah. So that's why she's blush. For some reason, Elaine blushed bright red. It's because you got humiliated trying to get her to come with you.
You also see Myrell and some of the others saying, I highlighted this because the seal that Nynaeve and Elaine were carrying and brought to Saladar was broken when it was unwrapped.
Yes. Yeah, we didn't mention that in the early part, but that's why they're sort of avoiding touching it.
Myrel says, "How many of the 7 still hold?" Myrel asks softly, as if to herself. "How long until the Dark One breaks free, and the last battle comes?" 3, Anaya said unsteadily. 3 still hold. If we know everything, let us pray we do. Let us pray 3 are enough. Let us pray those 3 are stronger than this one, Morvern muttered. Quendiar cannot be breaken so. Not and be Quendiar. It cannot. Shiriam cuts them off. "We will discuss this in due course," Shiriam said, "after more immediate matters that we can do something about." Taking the cloth from Beonin, she covered the broken seal once more. "Swan, Leanne, we have reached a decision concerning—" She stopped short as she turned and saw Elaine and Nynaeve. "Were you not told to go?" And they leave.
What do you think the decision they came to was?
"We have reached a decision concerning Loghain, probably, and whether or not he should be immediately executed."
I disagree.
What do you think?
We've made a decision about making Egwene the new Amerlin seat.
Egwene in particular?
Yep.
How do they know they can even get Egwene to get there? She's on the other side of the world.
But remember, Suan walked in here saying we need to get her as Amerlin seat. They don't know if she can get there that quickly, but I think absolutely Suan's been pushing that for a long time. Suan and Leanne have been playing off each other.
I think Swan and Leanne have been playing off each other. They want to get Egwene in there in particular. I think they really want that to happen, but I don't think the Saladar 6 know that.
Oh, they absolutely do, because there's a point where they brought it up. There's a couple of hints in here. That's not the only one.
I do strongly agree that the moment Swan walked into this place and realized what was happening, she knew she wanted Egwene for the job.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted Egwene in particular, and she wanted Egwene in particular. Maybe she even knows it more now because Egwene is a dreamwalker. She's studied with various people, so she knows a lot more about channeling than most Aes Sedai do. And she's closely connected to the Dragon Reborn. This is the White Tower's chance to survive the last battle. You must tie the Dragon Reborn to the White Tower, and the only way to do that is to put someone in power over the tower who Rand will respect, regardless of what he thinks of the tower. Rand doesn't think highly of the tower at all, but he'll never hurt Egwene. Never, ever.
I don't think that has anything to do with their calculation. I think it's more of this is someone who's powerful, wasn't in the tower during the breaking, and is someone we can manipulate. And Suan thinks she can manipulate her and thinks she can convince the Saladar 6 that they're manipulating her, and everyone's just competing for a puppet that they can play with. They just don't realize that this puppet is going to cut her own strings.
I don't know. I mean, why not pick one of the other Supergirls? No one's going to pick Nynaeve. She can't be controlled. Everyone knows that.
She's too angry. And Elaine is the Queen of Andor.
And? Why not Elaine? For the same reasons, you know?
Yeah, she would never be Amerlin as Queen of Andor. Never.
Why?
Because she
would have to be Queen of Andor.
She'd have to go be Queen of Andor. And that's taking up a ton of time. Yeah. And not necessarily connected to Rand and...
So, of the 3 hounds, Swan picks her...
I really think her only choice is Egwene. And it's one of the only people she knows is not black.
Nynaeve can't be controlled, even if you want to. And the more you try to force her...
No, and she can't channel reliably.
She can't channel reliably. But if you try to force her to do things, she sure can channel reliably. And then you can't force her to do a damn thing. Not even the Forsaken can force her to do a damn thing if she gets even a little upset. So she's not the one. And she'll bend you over and spank you just to prove a point and make you drink medicine that's gross. just to prove a point about who's in power and who is not. Terrible candidate, in summation.
I want to talk a little bit about the fact that now that the seal is broken, it doesn't feel evil.
Oh, sure. Well, that's because the Dark One's not touching it anymore.
Right.
He already broke it. One
of those things because it didn't feel evil for a long time, and then it felt evil, and now it doesn't once it's broken.
I'm glad you brought that up, though. And I suspect, at least, that it felt very evil, quote unquote, because the true power, or the Dark One was using the true power, which kind of is the Dark One, to break this seal. And so when the last time the women were touching it or inspecting it, the Dark One's hand, quote unquote, if the Dark One had hands, was on it.
Was on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're basically
and they could
both touching it.
feel it. They could feel, and it felt like, I always imagine it like a slick, rancid oil on top of food. Like, you gotta just throw this whole thing out now. This is rotten.
But now that's been broken, it has absolutely no association with them whatsoever. So it's not part of it.
Smell it from the next room. Yeah. It's the kind of thing you don't even throw in the garbage. You just bring it straight outside and put it in the real trash can. You don't want your house to smell like that.
But I do want to say, like, that physical feeling is there. It's not something they made up.
I'm chuckling because someone mentioned salad fingers in Discord and his gross fingers. I'm glad someone was around for that. Did you ever see Salad Fingers?
No.
Oh man, it's like a creepy old animation from like. Wish I could unsee it. Kirsten says, it's a creepy horror animation. Bambi just posted a link. Save that for later. Don't watch it now. It gets weirder. Don't watch it alone. Yeah. And I mean, if you've spent like 9 minutes on 4chan, go ahead and watch it. This won't faze you. But if you haven't, spare yourself. There are still some pure people in the world. Most of us are ruined. I did read, let us pray those things are stronger than this one, Morven muttered. Quendiara cannot be broken. So, and not be Quendiar. It cannot. And that's when Shiriam kicks them. The present Supergirls walk away, Elaine and Nynaeve, and they go to kind of meet with their group. Irina, Nicola, Marigan, Brigida, Gerald and Sev, the little boys, and 15 Shinaran soldiers.
And we notice Irina and Nicole are staring around in amazement. Marigon, who's just meh. Because she's Mogedian. I'll say it again. Marigon is Mogedian. And Brigida's doing more to take care of her kids than she is.
I'm continuously charmed at how much Brigida enjoys taking care of the little kids. Or trying to, anyway. Even though they never do anything other than cling to each other in fear.
The fear definitely is trauma, but you have to wonder how Mogedian's treating them when nobody else is looking.
Or just compelling them to be afraid all of the time so that they don't say anything, you know. It would be easy for her. It would be nothing. I did want to note that as Nynaeve walks into the room, only 2 others in the room were not scurrying about. 2 of Myrell's 3 warders happened to be leaning against the wall in conversation a few paces beyond the benches, just this side of the door, back to the kitchen corridor, and she describes them and things, but it was only happenstance that they alone had nothing to do and had chosen just that spot to do it. Of course.
Just happenstance.
That's Nynaeve's thoughts. She's being sarcastic.
Because they're being watched.
Nynaeve knows she's being watched.
Yeah.
These Saladar 6 are ready for them to run. And I would argue also that this means the Saladar 6 have tried to put Elaine and Nynaeve in the position of thinking that they're right back to being novices now and nothing they have has any value whatsoever in their offering. None of their information is important, and they're nothing important at all. But they're certainly not allowed to escape, are they? Why is that? Because they know a shit ton of things that the Saladar 6 don't. Saladar 6 haven't been outside of the White Tower or Saladar for a year? More? They don't know anything about what's happening in the world.
They're very much sequestered.
Which is why I think that Shiriam is taking this really strong hand in trying to control Elaine and Nynaeve, because she needs them. She needs everything that they know. She needs everything that they understand that's going on. They know how to do things with the power and their talents that these Saladar 6 have never even really heard of. They're legends to Shiriam. Walking through the dream, reading Elida's notes off her damn desk.
Right.
Are you kidding me? You're going to let those girls walk away? No, you're not.
No.
No, you're not.
At the same time, they're also not going to let the girls see their own value, because that gives them power. What they want the girls is to think
Precisely.
is, you are accepted, you are novices, you do what we say,
You have to put them down, tell them that they're little girls who are silly and got themselves involved in things they shouldn't have, and we'll take care of you now if you comply with all the things we're telling you.
So this is basically nagging.
Oh, sure. I was going to say, God forbid Shiriam tried to enforce that physically and watch herself be blown into tiny smithereens of little bits of dust by a pissed-off Nynaeve. They can't control these women.
They haven't sworn the oaths against violence.
They would need half or more than half of the Saladar Six altogether to control those two, to stop them from doing what they want.
So instead, they're controlling them emotionally the way
Exactly.
people do, which is treat them like shit and make them work their asses off to be perfect. And no matter how perfect you try, you're never going to achieve that. And so they spend their whole lives just working for your approval, even though they are superior to you. Yeah, there's a very much a Broken Earth aspect to this. I think of magic users being just treated like shit in order to convince them they're not worth it, so they'll do what you want. I feel like Broken Earth nails that to a T.
It's a shame the Saladar Six would have benefited very quickly and rapidly if they had just said, hey guys, we need your help with certain things. You need to understand that we're in charge here. We're in charge of this operation, but we know you want Elida out as much as we do. Work with us. Give us your information. We're building an army. We're going to assault the walls. If you just give us what you know, we can be that much more effective. Help us. We'll help you.
But again, you assume that Shiriam's goal is to succeed.
Oh,
Her goal,
sure.
yeah,
I know,
she's
that's
black.
very easy to forget. Shiriam's goal is not to succeed. It's to create a fight between the two sides over and over. Gosh. Yeah, I do forget it. Well, that would be the wise way to do it. But Shiriam's the leader here, and she's doing something pretty dumb. Creating tension.
Which is exactly what she's
what
supposed to be
would
doing.
be dumb if that wasn't right.
Her goal. It's very Weramon strategy, which is just pretend to be dumb, and then your inability to do the right thing looks like incompetence rather than malice.
Is that just at the Battle for Kyrien?
Oh, just Wireman in general. That's what he does. He pretends... I mean, he might also be incompetent. I'm not really sure about that. But he pretends to be incompetent in order to force Rand's troops into really awkward... For example, hey, y'all, just go attack. That's how Matt got his the Band of the Red Hand.
Yeah.
Weramon said, go attack. I'll be over here. Vino, I like the quote, never ascribe to malice what can be explained by incompetence, except when someone who's deliberately being malicious uses that to hide behind.
Well, I mean, it's certainly clever.
Yeah.
Which is why I think Weramon is quite clever. He's using that. Yeah.
If you're an idiot, if you pretend to be an idiot, nobody will take you seriously.
Because when you see him fail, it doesn't look like, oh, this guy's just an idiot. Who put him in charge? That's not his fault. That's your fault for putting this dumbass in charge, when actually he did a great job at damaging the enemy's position from the inside.
Then they run into Min, who's super happy to have friends again after traveling with frickin' Suan, Leanne, and Logain for almost a year.
What a bummer.
They were traveling for such a long time in that group of four, and that must have been a miserable experience for Min. Just miserable. She brushes on it briefly, but there's a lot of time.
I like to think of myself as a tolerant man, but I think I might have bounced somewhere in the middle of that. Just wake up in the middle of the night, just get the hell out of there.
All right, you three mopey still ex-channelers, I am out. Peace.
They're constantly trying to give me orders? Are you kidding me?
And fighting among themselves for control.
Ugh. So annoying.
And then Elaine's like, I would very much like to talk to you too. It's yeah, Min and Elaine have some shit to work out. And this is where we get the first admission where Min says, yeah, I love him too. You and I, and somebody else, but at least Avienda's keeping an eye on him. But I don't know who that other person is.
It's that Faolain is sent to collect them. Faolain's dress, with its 7 bands of color at the hem for the Ajas, was not quite as white as it should have been, and her dark face wore a scowl. I am surprised to see you here, Wilder. I thought you had gone running back to your village, and our fine daughter heir to her mother. Oh, are you still souring milk for a hobby, Faolain? Elaine asked. they just stare at each other. It's a pretty good burn. Faolain doesn't get along with anyone. Everyone hates her. She's a jerk.
Is Faolain... She's not black. She ends up being...
No, she ends up being sworn to Egwene.
Egwene, yeah.
She's just kind of has a real rough personality.
Yeah.
She just... everybody has a hard time working with her. But she is effective, I will say, in the future when Egwene sets her on specific tasks. This is the kind of person that you have to set, Faolain, this is your job, go do it. And she will be mean, she'll be rude, and she will go get that shit done. But, like, working with other people?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've definitely worked with this kind of person where you're like, man, they're really good at the job. I just fucking hate working with them.
Oh, absolutely. One of my best buddies, who you got the extraordinary privilege of talking to for a short period of time.
I remember that.
He's really hard to work with.
Yep.
But he's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my goddamn life. Like, if you just sick this kid on a problem, if you just bet him that he can't do it, he will do it, and he'll do it faster than you could have believed possible. But, God forbid, he has to do it with someone else. He's just... he doesn't work well with others, but he does work well.
I love the little, the way Nynaeve trips her up and is like, I hear Suan and Leanne have been badly treated by someone. And she's like, I bet it was you. And she nails it. I've done nothing since... And it's like, yeah, that means you did something.
Yeah. I heard Swan and Leanne have been badly treated by someone. I think Shiriam means to make an example to end it, once and for all. She kept her eyes steady on the other woman's, and Faolain's widened in alarm. I've done nothing since Shiriam... Faolain's mouth snapped shut.
Faolain, you got a little while before your Aes Sedai. You gotta let those secrets not slip.
Faolain's annoyed that she's basically been set on testing all of the young women that they encounter, because they have found so few. And we find the number is 3, which, I mean, if you find 3 women who can channel in a month or two, that's a lot. That's a big number in this regard. 3 new novices in a month? 2 months? I mean, how many was the White Tower getting before? Less than that.
And this is where they end up testing Nicola, and she ends up being probably the most powerful potential novice except for Nynaeve.
Yeah, very strong.
There are other more stronger channelers out there, but in terms of the new novices, she is definitely, I think, would have been the strongest in the White Tower before Nynaeve, even though she doesn't have the spark, unlike a lot of the other powerful channelers. She's an interesting counterexample of someone who can be very powerful and yet still be born without the spark. Nicola has more potential than Egwene, yeah.
More potential than Egwene, but not Nynaeve, is my understanding.
That was my understanding as well.
Egwene's very strong. Nynaeve is exceptional. Nynaeve is an Olympian. Egwene is the fastest runner you ever met. I wanted to read this little bit. In a moment, we run into Tom and Julian again, and we start hearing Tom's perspective on what's happening here in Saladar, which is always enlightening.
Whoa, hold on. Aradia, you're blowing my mind. Those are different people? So, oh man, I never... Phalian Boda is a traitor, and Faolain, this one...
She's loyal to the end. She may be an asshole, but
that's why I keep thinking she's black, is because I keep getting her mixed up with Phalian Boda.
Yeah, she may be a jerk, but she's on the right side. Like, she's tough to work with, but she's on the right side.
Alright, I always think she's black, and then I have to go, I'm like, wait, why do I think she's black? Because there is another Black Oddjob.
She's easy to hate.
Yeah, and she's terrible. You want her to be black. Okay, that explains, thank you for pointing that out, because I always am wondering, why the fuck am I convinced she's black, even though I know she's not? And it's like, oh, because there is another Black Aes Sedai that has the almost exact same name.
I just pronounce that, as Phalion, as opposed to Faolain.
I think maybe in the audiobooks I can tell them apart, but reading them, I don't.
Sure, they're really close.
Yeah. I'm very bad about reading all the names in text. That's one of those things where I do find my eyes will skip over if a couple letters are different.
I'm going to read this little bit, and I want to bring this back into context, that we're still in the scene where there are 2 warders standing in the room watching what the Supergirls who are present are doing. But Tom, Julian, the Shinarans, everybody is there. All of Nynaeve and Elaine's people. And this is just 2 paragraphs, but by Tom's face, he could have been about to comment on the weather, or ask what was for supper. Nothing important. And Tom says, "This place is dangerous. It's full of fools and dreamers. They think they can depose Elida, and that's why Gareth Bryn is here, to raise an army for them." I imagine Tom saying this kind of quietly out the side of his mouth while he smiles around and is, looking normal. Julian's grin almost split his dark face in 2. "Not fools, mad women and madmen. I don't care if Elida was there the day Logain was born. They're mad to think they can pull down an Amerlin sitting in the White Tower from here. We could reach Cairhien in a month. Maybe." Regan and a few of the others already have horses marked out for borrowing. Una was grinning, too. It looked incredibly incongruous with that glaring red eye on his patch. The guards are set to watch for people coming in, not going out. We can lose them in the forest. It'll be dark soon. They'll never find us. The women's donning their great serpent rings back at the river had had a remarkable effect on his language, though he did seem to make up for it when he thought they could not hear. Nynaeve looked at Elaine, who shook her head slightly. I just marked that to read because the men are saying, well, we walked into a garbage situation, and now that we've seen that, we should leave. And we should leave as soon as possible. And if it means stealing horses from Aes Sedai and warders, we will do that, and we will ride. We will ride so fast.
And we'll get you out of here.
They won't have a damn chance at catching us. Because he is acting like he doesn't know what's going on. He's acting casual while quietly saying the important things in the Supergirl's ears.
Oh, you mean like he did with Queen Morghese to get her up to power? Behind every queen is a strong gleeman.
Well, a face and a mind, maybe. Oh, Morghese is sharp by herself, but Morghese with Tom, could have taken over the world. I'd read that book. The next thing that I have highlighted is from Nynaeve's perspective. Nassau and Dagdara were yellow, too. It was said that Dagdara, her graying hair marking her considerable age on an Aes Sedai, knew more of healing than any 2 others. It was not as if Nynaeve would be able to do anything useful if she did go to Rand, just watch him go mad. But if she could progress with healing, maybe she could find a way to hold that madness off. There was too much that Aes Sedai were willing to call hopeless, and let go, that suit her.
There's a lot of interesting Nynaeve motivation in that statement. It's like she is there to help the Two Rivers folks, but she's come so far from that goal that now she's like, well, to help Rand, I need to learn how to heal, which means I need to become Aes Sedai, and it's like...
Which means I need to make alliances with these particular people so that I can become a part of their little club, so that I can learn...
It reminds me of that Malcolm in the Middle gif where the dad comes home and goes to fix the light bulb and opens a drawer to pull out the light bulb, and the drawer's squeaky. So then he goes to get a screw to fix the drawer, but but he's out of screws. So he goes to get in the car to go to the hardware store, but the car is broken. And it's like, he like, by the time you're like, and then the wife comes home and is like, can you replace that bulb? And he's like under the car with like 6 projects around him. He's like, that's what I'm doing! And it's like, great gif. And like, to me, that's exactly what's going on there. It's just like 3 steps before you can...
Basically, yeah. If you want to save Rand, you need much more information. You need to be way better at what you're doing.
But she's so far off her original goal of trying to help the Two Rivers folks that it's like, Nynaeve, don't you want to help the Two Rivers folks? And I just want to return, that's what I'm doing! It's like, not really. Like, that was maybe what you originally tried to do, but you are so far off task at this point.
The very next thing, oh god, guys, I have a ton more to read. Because there's so many good things here. But, firstly...
It's a long chapter, too.
Nynaeve tries to send all the men home. And I didn't even mark this, but Nynaeve says, we'll be staying here. Uno, if you and the others want to go to Rand, you are free to go. As far as I'm concerned, I fear I no longer have money to help you. And I'm skipping forward to my next highlight, but I do have some things you can sell along the way. Nynaeve doesn't have any money anymore, but she does give the Shienarans some of the jewels and things. She's saying thank you very much, but without actually saying thank you very much. You must go too, Tom, Elaine said. And you, Julian. There's no point in remaining. We have no need of you now, but Rand will. The three men exchanged looks, and I'm going to skip ahead a little more, and this... Perhaps in a few days, Tom said. A few days, Julian agreed. Uno nodded. I could do with a little rest if I'm going to be running from warders halfway through to Cairn. Nynaeve gave them her flattest stare and deliberately tugged her braid. Elaine had her chin as high as it had ever been, her blue eyes haughty enough to chip ice.
They're deliberately broadcasting their anger. They're not being subtle about it.
Tom and the others surely knew the signs by now. Their nonsense was not going to be allowed. If you think you are still following Randolph Thor's orders to look after us, Elaine began in frosty tones at the same time that Nynaeve said heatedly, you promised to do as you were told, and I mean to see... Nothing like that, Tom broke in, brushing back a strand of Elaine's hair with a gnarled finger. Nothing at all like. Can an old man with a limp take a little rest? To tell the truth, Julian said, I'm just staying because Tom owes me money. Dice. Do you expect us to steal 20 horses from warders like falling out of bed? Uno grunted. He seemed to have forgotten just offering to do exactly that.
That's one of my favorite lines. What,
literally, like 1 second ago, yeah. He's like, if you guys want us to get some horses, we can get some horses. We'll be out of here in 2 seconds. And then when the girls are like, we're going to stay, they're like, we never offered to steal any horses. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. We would never do anything like that.
That's something she keeps in her back pocket for a long time, that, like, maybe I can just call up Uno and he can get us out of here. She, like, comes back to that over and over and over again.
She can.
Yeah. Although she doesn't.
15 armed Shienarans, I mean, those 2 warders are going to be dead before they even have a thought about what they're doing.
Yeah, 15's too many to really...
If the girls wanted to leave, they could leave now. They could have left in the middle of that damn meeting. Anyway.
I'm not sure. I think the Aes Sedai would...
What, started a small war? How many people would die?
I'm just saying.
Sure, they could have started a small war. With Nynaeve, an angry Nynaeve, and the daughter heir of Andor standing in the room.
I do think there are enough Aes Sedai that they could have... If Nynaeve went nuclear, they could have shielded her.
Eventually. How many die first, though?
I don't think it would escalate to that point.
I'm just saying. I thought about it. In that moment when Nynaeve is angry and they're trying to... And the Saladar 6, there are 6 of them, are trying to berate Nynaeve and put her in her place. They are quite lucky that Nynaeve and Elaine don't have their backs up, that they're trying to come back, that they're trying to be a part of this. Because if they weren't, and they didn't want to take those orders, first of all, could the 6 shield Nynaeve if they wanted to? Maybe. I say the answer is probably if they tried really hard. Then you got to deal with Elaine. And then however many warders these 6 women have in the room, there are 17 men standing outside who are... I feel like Shiriam was really on thin ice there.
I just don't think we're in a punching situation. Like, nobody here is punching.
It's not.
No.
No. I'm just saying.
If it escalated to that point, yeah, I wouldn't want to be... I wouldn't
dangerous.
Want to fight Nynaeve. Yeah, very dangerous. But it's like, it's when you're having, like, a conversation at a bar, and you're like, oh, I wouldn't want to fight that dude. Well, you're not going to. You're just having an argument at the bar. Like, I guess the potential is there, but...
Oh, sure. And I'm mainly bringing it up because at this point, it's really in our heads when Uno's saying, well, do you expect us to steal 20 horses at the drop of a hat? Which he already offered to do. The plan for escape was there until the Supergirls said, no, we're not going to escape. We're going to stay here and work with these people. The escape plan was there until that moment. I guess that's really the point that I'm trying to make. And would the Saladar 6, in their wisdom, as much as they have, even try to stop them if they could? Very dangerous to try.
I just see a situation where Uno would steal the horses, they'd all be, like, crawling through the dark, and then, like, someone would throw up a globe of light, and they'd be surrounded by warders, and be like, hey, we got you. I don't think Uno would fight his way out of that. He'd just be like, yeah, you got me.
Yeah, I mean, he might. Well, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is if Nynaeve and Elaine really wanted to leave, there is no amount of warders that would be effective. And you would need at least several Aes Sedai on both of these women to stop them. But they don't, that's not what they want to do. But if they wanted to, they most certainly could. And they could hurt this group bad for trying to take them. Of course, they'd lose eventually. Absolutely. Because they're just outnumbered.
He's a little bravado. He's like, I'm here for you. I'll steal the horses if you want to. But, like, realistically, it would be very difficult for him to actually steal the horses without getting
Absolutely.
caught. Yeah. He's saying, hey, I'm on your side, even if...
I will if I must,
yeah.
But it would be stupid to do so.
Right.
In the same way, I think that Shiriam is saying, I will capture them if I must, but it would be stupid to do so. We need to cow them with mean words and strong personality, because these women aren't going to be cowed by spankings. They're women. They're not little children.
They try, though. They certainly try.
Every other week, this woman right here gets into a personal fight with Moghedien and somehow continues to survive. Like, do you want to fight her? Do you want to fight her allies too?
I like how they're like, oh, you fought Moghedien? That probably wasn't a good idea. Anyway, go be an apprentice. It's like, dude, she kicked a Forsaken's ass. And you believe her. You're not saying I don't believe you.
It seems that some of the women don't believe her.
Yeah, it does seem a little bravado-esque. And she hasn't done all her feats where she's like come up with the inventions and stuff yet.
I agree with you, Slats. I mean, Nynaeve doesn't think she did a great job. And Nynaeve did, I mean, she kind of tied Moghedien once, more or less. Barely managed to make it out alive. Got enough advantage to escape the first time. And the second time, she kind of got her ass whooped and managed to escape alive again. But
just
to...
Brigida, yeah.
And that's in a one-on-one, or more or less a one-on-one. I mean, gosh, if someone would back Nynaeve, or a group would back Nynaeve and set a trap for Moghedien when she comes for her, that would be the way to do this.
Moghedien, who's already there?
Have 20 Aes Sedai waiting. Well, in the dream or whatever.
So they are leaving, and as they're leaving the meeting, here Nynaeve notices that Leanne and Suan... In the midst of all the ickiness, there had been one instant, a brief flicker she almost missed with it right in front of her. And that's when she realizes that they're actually working together to manipulate the rest of the Aes Sedai. Within an hour of seeing them in the room together, she figures it out.
They're pretending to hate each other so that the Saladar Six don't realize that they're working together to manipulate the whole group.
But of course Nynaeve sees that. And she uses it against Suan here in a minute. And then Gareth Bryn comes in and really gives Elaine a fucking cold shoulder.
A lot of important things happen here with Tom, the Shinarans, and Bryn.
Well, and don't forget, as you're reading this, that Gareth Bryn and Tom Merrilin are both former lovers of Morghese.
They know each other.
Gareth Bryn was ordered by Morghese to hunt down Tom Merrilin when Tom Merrilin disappeared to help his brother Owen. They have a long history, and they know who the other person is very, very well.
But I just felt that this is kind of a setup for what's happening over the next few books, at least for these characters in this situation. The unpainted door opened, and Swan stalked out, followed by Leanne. They stared at each other coldly, before Leanne sniffed and glided away. Startlingly sinuous as she vanished around Croy and Avar into the corridor that led into the kitchens. Nynaeve frowned slightly. In the midst of all that iciness, there had been one instant, a brief flicker she almost missed, with it right in front of her. Swan swung toward her, then abruptly stopped short, her face going blank. Someone else had joined the small gathering. Gareth Bryn, dented breastplate buckled over his plain bluff-colored coat, and steel-backed gauntlets tucked behind his sword belt, radiated command. Mostly gray hair and a bluff face gave him the appearance of a man who had seen everything, endured everything, a man who could endure anything. Elaine smiled, nodding graciously. A far cry from her astonished stares, coming into Saladar, when she had first recognized him at the length of the street. "I will not say it is entirely good to see you, Lord Gareth. I have heard of some difficulty between Mother and you, but I am sure it can be mended. You know Mother is hasty sometimes. She will come round, and ask you back to your proper place in Camelin. You may be certain of it. Done is done, Elaine. Ignoring her astonishment, Nynaeve doubted anyone who knew Elaine's rank had ever been so curt to her. He turned to Uno. Have you thought on what I said? Shinarans are the finest heavy cavalry in the world, and I have lads who are just right for proper training. Uno frowned, his one eye sliding to Elaine and Nynaeve. Slowly, he nodded. I've nothing better to do. I'll ask the others. Brian clapped him on the shoulder. Well enough. And you, Tom Marilyn. Tom had half turned away at the other man's approach, knuckling his mustaches and staring at the floor as if to obscure his face. Now he met Bryn's level stare with one of his own. I once knew a fellow with a name much like yours, Bryn said, a skilled player of a certain game. I once knew a fellow who looked much like you, Tom replied. He tried hard to put me in chains. I think he'd have cut my head off if he ever laid hands on me. A long time ago, that would be. Men do strange things for women sometimes. Bryn glanced at Swan and shook his head. Will you join me for a game of stones, Master Marilyn? I sometimes find myself wishing for a man who knows the game well, the way it's played in lofty circles. Tom's bushy white eyebrows drew down, almost as far as Uno's had, but he never took his eyes from Bryn. I might play a game, or two, he said finally, once I know the stakes. As long as you understand, I don't intend to spend the rest of my life playing stones with you. I don't like staying too long in one place any more. My feet itch sometimes. So long as they don't itch in the middle of a crucial game, Bryn told him dryly. The two of you come with me, and don't expect much sleep. Around here everything needs doing yesterday, except what should have been done last week. Pausing, he looked at Swan again. My shirts came back only half clean today. With that, he was leading Tom and Uno off. Swan glared at his back, then shifted her frown to Min, and Min grimaced and darted off the way Leanne had gone. Nynaeve did not understand that last exchange at all, and the nerve of those men, thinking they could talk over her head, or under her nose, or whatever, without her understanding every word. Enough of them, anyway. That just set up like the next four books, guys, and what all four of those characters are doing.
Tom and Gareth Bryn, I think he's basically saying, hey, will you come help me plan out the attack on the White Tower? And Marilyn's saying, I'll help, but I'm not going to be like...
I'll help as long as I like to help, is what he's saying.
and Gareth Bryn turns to him and says, well, as long as you don't leave in the middle of a battle or in the middle of strategy and leave me hanging, like, I could really use your help.
Listen, I'll use you as long as I can, as long as you'll stay.
Well, they're not talking about stones. They're talking about taking back the White Tower. That's the game they're talking about.
Yeah, they're not talking about the game of stones. They're talking about the great game, a certain game. That's what Bryn needs Tom for. He needs Tom to play the not
Game of House
physical side
yeah.
of the game. Bryn plays the physical side like a master, but he doesn't play stones like Tom does.
He plays the Aes Sedai pretty well.
As good as he can.
He walks into a situation and knows exactly what's going on.
But with a man like Tom at his side, I mean,
sure.
What can't they conquer?
And Tom can work without necessarily being obvious about it.
The two of them together? And with the Shinarans as Bryn's, some of his top commanders, some of his cavalry commanders. These are some of the finest people that could have gathered to make an army. Now all they need are men to be in the army.
And men will flock to Gareth Bryn's army.
Which Bryn has been working on.
Yeah.
He has been working on for a few weeks, but...
Between the Black Tower, Gareth Bryn, and everybody else recruiting, it's like, dude, if you're a male between the ages of like 15 and 60, you are in an army.
How many men are still alive?
Not that many.
Anyway, we should finish this chapter before I go totally off the rails.
Before?
Yeah, I've been sitting here drinking rice wine this whole time, guys. Almost out.
I think that ship has sailed, Patrick.
Thank God Julia drank a little. I would have drank that whole bottle.
So next thing I have, going back to the chapter, there's a little scene where Suan looks at Maragon and her mouth twists as if she tastes something bad, and it's like, dude, Moghedien hates Swan absolutely hates her. She has been a wrench in her gears for a long time. And then Swan starts trying to figure out how, if she can, she's like, oh, Teleron Riyadh, I can have access to this without channeling? That gives me power. And she starts bargaining with Nynaeve to basically get access to to Teleron Riyadh, the Terangreal that gives her access to Teleron Riyadh.
Kind of threatens Nynaeve and says, listen, I know about a lot of the things that you didn't tell to the women who are questioning you, and all you have to do to ensure my silence is train me, teach me how to use the stone ring, essentially. And I love Nynaeve's response is, I'll read this little part. So, was a little cringing all it took to make them forget the two of you had worked hand in hand for years? Or did you convince them that stealing had changed everything about you and not just your face? When they found out you'd been scheming behind their backs, manipulating them, you'll howl louder than any grunter, whatever that is.
I assume a fish of some kind.
Yeah, and or maybe a frog or something.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter. Nynaeve's right. The point is, Swan threatens Nynaeve, and Nynaeve threatens her right back. And I just really love that moment.
And she uses the word grunter because Swan just used it.
Yeah, that was it. I took that out of context. I didn't want to read this whole thing. There's a kind of back and forth between Nynaeve and Swan, and finally they manage to come to the agreement that Nynaeve will train Swan to use the stone ring Terangreal, and Swan... What are the things Nynaeve asks for?
Well, I think it's basically to study them.
She wants to study Leanne and Swan and Logain. She wants to study their stealing and see if it can be healed.
Vino points out a good point something out here, that the only person who actually remembered that Swan and Leanne were friends was Elida. And that's partially why she was able to pull him down, is she remembered. That's we don't give Elida enough credit, I think, for just how smart she is, because after the whole Fane incident, she really just goes downhill with paranoia. But
oh, yeah, she is really smart, but
very
she's
smart.
Antisocial? She's not able to actually put together a coalition that wants to work with her or enjoys working with her. And so...
I mean, she's a terrible human
everything
being.
She tries to do falls apart constantly.
Yeah. But Fane has a huge influence on her, right? That was sort of the point I was trying to make, is before Fane,
that too. She
was a competent, if kind of mean person who could, might have actually been a decent Amerlin seat. After Fane, there was just nothing. Nothing but paranoia and craziness. Fane takes your worst aspects of your personality. He doesn't, change your personality, but he makes the worst aspects of them prominent. The worst of your own heart. Here's the other quote that makes me think that the sisters have agreed to make Egwene the new Amerlin seat. Finally, Swan muttered, I hope Moraine has managed to keep Egwene's backbone more supple than this. So after Nynaeve gives her a bunch of trouble, what she's saying is, I hope that Egwene is supple and manipulatable, so that when she's the Amerlin seat, I can manipulate her.
Even less than Nynaeve is now.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve is a wild horse, good freaking luck trying to control her. Egwene is even wilder.
But Swan doesn't know that right now. Right now she thinks Egwene's going to be a supple little do whatever I say novice, and that's why she's trying to put her in. So that's my second piece of evidence in this chapter, that they have already decided that Egwene's going to be the new Amerlin seat.
That is a good catch. And like I said, if anything, Egwene is the harder horse to wrangle here, even than Nynaeve now.
Totally agree, because Egwene knows what she wants.
Spending all that time with the Wise Ones, they strengthened her backbone.
Totally. That's all they did. Spent forever strengthening her backbone. That's
she's a freaking monster now.
Yeah.
And good luck disciplining her. She'll haunt your dreams, literally. You will not sleep.
And
never
you could
again.
Spank her
Not
for
if she doesn't want you
ages.
to.
It's dude, the Wise Ones did way worse to me. You think this is gonna upset me?
A spanking?
Nice try. Yeah,
okay.
Right. All right.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Oh, ow, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. All right, whatever. Done. Response to being beaten. Oh, I guess this sucks.
Over the next few pages, there's some between Min and Elaine as we segue into her...
Elaine's POV.
POV here, but is that Elaine's POV is mainly her and Elaine talking. They talk about the situation with Rand, Elaine, Avienda. They don't know who the third woman is yet.
I love how they keep saying, we don't know who that third woman is, but I'm glad Avienda's there with him to watch
Good
over
thing
him.
Avienda's right there with him.
But but I wonder who that third woman is. I bet she's got a temper, but maybe it's just again, it's just Jordan hanging a lantern on it. He's like, yeah, this is what's going on here, folks. It's going to be Avienda, and they should maybe see that. It's I don't know how to say it. He loves to prove his characters wrong, or to not even prove them wrong, but just to be like, have them not see the obvious thing that's directly in front of their face.
Yeah.
No.
Highlight his strong character's mistakes.
Avienda at this point is the only one who's slept with Rand, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because there was they had igloo sex, and he made out with Elaine for a little bit.
Well, he hasn't had the cuddling with Min yet, as it's said in the words, but I imagine,
Oh,
cuddles lead to kissing, and kissing leads to, guys, we're all adults here. So whenever RJ says, yeah, they spent a long time cuddling, I'm like, okay, yeah. Then they shut the door and locked it and came back out a few hours later. We all know.
There's no need to be explicit about it, but, that's fine. Jordan generally isn't. So we appreciate that about him, I think. Because there's so many fantasy authors that really should not write about sex.
There's no reason to be super
explicit, Like, you can be, and there's certainly books like that I enjoy and I read, and...
Sure. There's a time and a place for erotica, but this is not erotica.
No.
They're sleeping together. It's enough. You can infer what else is happening. There's not one on top of the sheets and one below the sheets, guys. I think we all already knew that.
head to toe. Head to toe.
Yeah, right. One's in a sleeping bag, the other's not. And then sewn shut. Anyway, should I read us out here before we fall all the way off the rails?
Oh, those three you brought with you are trouble, and that is a viewing? She's like, I can't... I'm not sure where you're going to start the readout. Yeah. I think, though, that what she's seeing is basically Moghedien has disguised herself with the weaves, and so Min isn't seeing the auras that she normally sees around Aes Sedai, or channelers, because of Moghedien's hiding weave.
Moghedien's a big problem, obviously, but Nicola
is a trouble.
Political problem later.
But I do think that what she's seeing is Moghedien. She's seeing the,
this is going to be a thing to deal with.
Glimpses of an aura. And it's I think that aura, the reason she's only seeing it out of the side of her eye is because it's Moghedien who's shielding herself. And if Moghedien wasn't shielding herself, every time she looked at Moghedien, she'd see the aura of trouble around her.
I agree.
But that's the only, I don't know if that's a deliberate effect.
Nicola's a little bit of a problem later, but I think she's probably...
it's more of a pain, yeah.
And like you said, Min isn't exactly sure, but she just kind of knows that these three that you brought with you, these are going to be trouble.
Capital T. But just because they're all together, it's possible that it's just one of them that's going to be trouble more than the others, and I think that's Moghedien. The trouble that Nicola causes is such I know it's it is trouble, but it's kind of minor. I can see where Jordan would be setting it up though. Yeah,
to be a little vague.
Yeah, but again, I think what he's doing there is saying, yeah, this is Moghedien, and just doing a little nod to that. But I have wondered, why didn't Min spot a Forsaken in hiding? If she always claims that people who channel Aes Sedai have all these auras around them all the time, it seems like that would be a reliable way to identify someone who's hiding channeling, unless for some reason the weave that hides your channeling also stops Min from seeing the auras.
It could be, but people have auras. It doesn't necessarily mean that they can channel. And even if they can channel, even if they have a negative aura, it doesn't mean that they're Forsaken. It would be impossible to identify someone based on what's going to happen to them.
But the quantity of auras is different for channelers versus non-channelers.
And warders.
And
people generally near them. Skylake says Min saw one of the disguised servants with a bunch of viewings around her in Amol, and that's how she detected Mog. I did not remember that, but that's a good one. Elaine exhaled slowly. Not Min's fault. Was it better? That it was Min rather than, say, Berlane or somebody else she could not abide? De Verin, she said. He bends the world around him. We are chips caught in a whirlpool. But I seem to recall you and me and Egwene saying we'd never let a man come between us being friends. We will work it out, somehow, Min. And when we find out who the third is, well, we'll work that out as well, somehow. A third. Could she be Berlane? Oh, blood and ashes. Somehow, Min said bleakly. Meanwhile, you and I are caught here in a leg trap. I know there's another. I know I can't do anything about it, but I had enough trouble reconciling myself to you, and Kyrianan women aren't all like Moraine. I saw a Kyrianan noblewoman in Berlon once. On the surface, she made Moraine look like Leanne, but sometimes she said things, hinting, and her auras. I don't think a man in the whole town was safe alone with her, not unless he was ugly, lame, or dead. Elaine sniffed, but she managed to make her voice light. Never you mind about that. We have another sister, you and I, and we've never met. Avienda is keeping a close eye on Rand, and he doesn't go 10 steps without a guard of Aiel maidens of the spear. A Kyrianan woman. At least she had met Berlane, knew something of her. No, she was not going to fret over it like some brainless girl. A grown woman dealt with the world as it was, and made the best of it. Who could it be? They had come out into an open yard dotted with cold ashes. Huge kettles, almost most pitted where the rust had been scrubbed away, stood against the encircling stone wall which had been toppled in several places by trees growing up in it. Despite the shadows crossing the yard, 2 steaming kettles still sat on the flames, and 3 novices, hairs sweat-soaked and white skirts tied up, were hard at work on the scrub boards stuck into broad washpots full of soapy water. With a glance at the shirts under Min's arm, Elaine embraced Saidar. Let me help you with those. Channeling to do assigned chores was forbidden. Physical labor built character, so they said, but this could not be counted the same. If she swirled the shirts around in the water violently enough, there should be no reason to get their hands wet. Tell me everything. Are you, Swan and Leanne, as changed as they seem? How did you get here? Is Logain really here? And why are you laundering man's shirts? Everything. Min laughed, plainly pleased to change the subject. Everything will take a week, but I'll try. First, I helped Swan and Leanne get out of the dungeon Elida had stuck them in, and then, making appropriate sounds of amazement, Elaine channeled air to lift one of the boiling kettles clear of its flames. She hardly noticed the novice's incredulous stares. She was used to her own strength now, and it rarely occurred to her that she did things without thinking, that some full Aes Sedai could not do at all. Who was the third woman? Avienda had better be keeping a close eye on him. Seth and I are both laid off of our regular day jobs due to COVID-19 restrictions because we're both...
we work in food service.
Yeah, we're centers. We're the vectors of humans.
I touch your food, is what it... and people don't want that to be... that's not what people want anymore.
I pick up...
serve the food.
Dirty glasses and clean them and then put new drinks in them. That's a lot of what I do.
And a lot of the issue is like just other customers, right? Like you just don't want a bunch of customers hanging out in the booth, sitting in a chair, getting up, and then someone else sitting in that same chair.
I make secondary contact, if not direct contact, with 100 people a day. So it makes perfect sense. I'm not mad at the government. We should stay home. Folks in Discord are saying they're sorry. It's all right, guys. We have unemployment insurance, which I noticed a lot of people overseas don't understand. This is a built-in thing in the States where you must pay certain taxes, and if you're unemployed for a certain amount of time, you are now eligible to get, I think it's like 75% of your regular pay for a certain amount of time while you're looking for new work. We should be all right. Plus, we have the podcast. Kirsten's asking me how that works with tips. Kirsten, to be frank, I am very lucky that my restaurant changed its the way it works recently, where basically all of my credit card tips, anyone that charges their meal or drinks on a credit card and tips me, that all goes on to a regular payroll thing. So I get that money at the end of the 2-week pay cycle. Yeah, so I'm quite lucky because, to be honest,
because then it counts as income.
I probably shouldn't be out loud, but to be honest, everyone knows this. Fuck it.
Yeah, that part of culture. Yeah.
The rule that I was taught when I was being trained as a bartender is you claim 3/5 of what you actually made. That's what you should claim. It's enough so that if you're trying to build up how you look to get a loan to buy a house one day, or whatever, you're making enough that it makes sense, but you're not being taxed on some amount. That's your money to bring home, and you can, buy nice things for your partner or whatever. I don't actually have that option anymore for the last few months, but that means unemployment should reflect my actual pay.
Right.
Which is benefiting me right now for sure, because like me and Seth were talking about before we flip the recording on, depending on how long all these lockdowns go down for, I don't know how long these restaurant owners are these are small business people. They're not wealthy. They can't pay the rent when people aren't sitting down and buying drinks and food. How long are these restaurants going to last for? Is there going to be a work to go back to? I don't know. No one knows.
No, we don't. And we're the restaurant owners in particular, David.
I feel bad for them.
I want to do the right thing by you guys, but he's not in a good position. He has to pay rent.
They staked their whole gosh.
Yeah.
Poor my bosses.
Most of these people are already, if you know about restaurants, they're already heavily leveraged against whatever.
They staked their whole life savings to buy this place like a year ago. And they're month to month, like, ugh.
Yeah.
And they don't get unemployment. If your business fails, you don't get anything. Unless you're really rich, and then you get a lot from the government. I don't know why it works that way, but it does. But actual working chefs who are in there sweating 16 hours a day, they don't get nothing if your business fails. I get something as an employee.
Yeah, I just can't imagine. Now, I mean, the only thing you could do, if the government, that's why the government really needs to step up, and, if you're going to force businesses to close, you have to either say they don't have to pay rent, and the banks can't just have to suck that up, or do something to provide revenue to these places. Or else you're just going to come out of the recession with no businesses and no jobs.
Yeah. You want an economy after this?
Be a shame if something happened to it. It's a nice economy you got there.
Fires happen, Colonel. So we're all locked into our places, hanging out on the internet a lot. Can't go to the gym, can't go get a beer. Kirsten, yes, we typically get tax returns. It depends on how much you make.
Yeah, I've never gotten more than $1,000 back.
Yeah, I don't make a ton. I usually get a little less than that.
I said, yeah, that's my maximum. I got once.
I'm a big news junkie. I read the New York Times every day. Today I opened it up and I was like, yeah, the virus. Okay, can you tell me about anything else that's happening in the world? No, they can't. So I turned off the app. And I watched Star Trek instead for the first 2 hours of my day.
I've been playing a fair amount of Minecraft over the last 2 days, simply because I don't know what else to do with my mind. It's the best way to just sort of make time go by without stressing. I'm
also a bit tired of hearing about it, but
yeah, if you want to support us, Patreon is definitely the best way to help us out.
Absolutely.
That's really, really, really where we are making our money, our survival. Right now, we are depending on that. We are super depending on that income.
Literally all I have, unless...
Yeah. Same. Yeah, we're both of us...
Savings and Julia's little bit of money she makes doing copy editing online.
And I'll admit, like, I want to get to more editing. I've had a lot of trouble sitting down and focusing with everything that's been going on. Like, I've sat down a couple of times at the computer, and I get like 5 minutes to editing, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm so stressed.
Fair enough, my dude. These are super weird times.
Now that I haven't worked for a day, now that things are settling out a little bit, now that I know I'm unemployed, I'm hoping that I can really dig into the net, because I've got a good number of episodes to edit.
I've been doing at least an hour of yoga a day, because without being on my feet I'm usually on my feet all day. So, I get to come home tired, which I'm now seeing as a privilege. Mm-hmm. But hey, yeah, guys, if you're looking for anything, I pay them, but I think you can get a free version of the Down Dog app if you like yoga, and it's a fully guided with video, everything. Been doing yoga every morning. I wake up, drink my coffee. I used to read the news, but it's the same every day now. So now I guess I watch Star Trek while I drink my coffee, and then I do yoga, and then...
In fairness, it's a little bit worse every day.
Yeah, I open up my news app now, and it's like, oh, death count slightly higher. Yeah, well, yeah, I could have guessed. Stuff's awful here, stuff's awful there. Ugh, I know, man. Yeah, Kirsten, check out that app. I support it. I pay, gosh, I think it's maybe $7 a month or $8 a month. And I get all the yoga classes I could possibly ask for. You can't get that deal at a yoga gym. It's like $10 a day or something I'm paying for it.
I think I'm going to try and bike a little bit more. It both gets me out of the house and is exercise.
Oh, dude, we haven't been able to do a bike trip together in so long. Let's keep that in the back of our heads.
That's a good point. We could use this time to just bike somewhere remote.
Or at least bike out and try to burn off the beers that we're drinking while we sit still in our apartments. Yeah, I'm gonna gain weight if I don't start doing something. Oh my gosh. Okay, Kirsten is telling me she just looked up Down Dog because she was interested in my recommendation, which is entirely free, even like the HD videos and stuff, until April 1st. It looks like they're kicking it down to help people out during this whole COVID-19 thing. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, even full price is like $8 a month. If you're doing yoga every day, it's worth it. I try to, but usually it's more like every other. But now that I'm locked in my apartment, I'm looking for things to do. So, like I said, wake up, watch Star Trek, do some yoga while I drink, or watch Star Trek while I drink my coffee, do some yoga, think about something to do for the house. Today was scrub the stove and oven, wash all that.
Now, I like I said, today was my first day off, so I haven't like put any work into establishing my unemployed routine.
It's like a prison routine. Like,
yeah,
you
totally.
have to figure out what you're doing because you're trapped in this apartment.
but I've been unemployed enough recently that I'm quite good at it. There's a little different because I can't leave the apartment, whereas when I was unemployed, I was like, I can go out of the apartment and like sit and spend $3 on a cup of coffee and be out of the house for 8 hours. So this is a slightly different situation, but I've gotten pretty good at used to sheltering in my house.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty good at it. And I was joking with my cousin. I was like, oh man, like me and Jules are going to be fine. You know, our unemployment benefits should kick in. Plus I make money from the podcast. She makes money doing her copy editing online. And I mean, I was a prepper before it was cool. And he was like, I was a prepper before you were before you were born. He's like 15 years older than me, but we always had a I was a I was a prepper way before it was cool. Been waiting for this. I joke, but I think it's just sensible. I mean, I hope nobody minds that I'm dissembling, but if we're gonna, like I said, if we're all locked in our apartments, we might as well sit and have this conversation. So my dad wasn't really around when I was growing up. My mom was, but she was working her butt off, like paying for my school and all that. So she was gone most of the time, and I was with my golden generation grandparents. And those were the people that really raised me, other than my mom. And they were always highly suspicious of anyone who said that, yes, everything will be okay forever. Because they were like, no, Patrick, we remember a time when things were not okay for long periods of time. Sometimes the floor just is pulled out from underneath you, and you need to be ready for that. And they stored not just water, but tons of food. But basic supplies like cooking oil, pasta, because one of them was Italian. Beer and wine can be stored for a really long time. All those kinds of things. Sure, the canned tomato sauce, stuff like that. And that's just the way I grew up, so that's the way I have always done it. And hey, it worked out. I'm pausing because I'm reading about all the things that people stocked up on. Wine, tinned peaches. Tinned peaches are delicious. That was one of my favorite things when I was a little kid.
I think it's funny when people see something about to run out, they'll like panic buy whatever's left. Because, oh my god, it's almost out. But the reason it's almost out is that people are panic buying it. It's like the whole thing with toilet paper. The only reason it ran out is because people were like, oh my god, everybody's buying toilet paper. Well, let me go buy all the toilet paper.
You see, my dude, there's another thing. When my apartment gets down to like 6 rolls or so, I order another 30 off of Amazon, and then I don't have to think about that again for the next, however many months. It's just the way I like to do it. But then this thing hit, and I just happen to have about 32 rolls in the house. It's not because I'm hoarding, it's just because I don't want to have to worry about it. And toilet paper's not that expensive. Buy bulk. Have a closet that's just full of this stuff. It's cool, man. Get a little cheaper. It's not crazy, it's just sensible. I don't want to have to worry about running out of toilet paper. Not ever. Forget the virus, forget everything. I just don't want to ever have to worry about that. So when you're down to 5, order 50, and then at the end of the year, you may have to think about it again. That's it. Books and bidets, heck yeah, Kelsey TB. There's one reason my apartment does not go through very much toilet paper. How many squares do you need after a bidet? And they only cost $20-$30. You can hook them up to your regular toilet. Do it. Okay.
So you're saying Fox and Raven Media is pro bidet, is what we're coming down on.
Oh, heck yeah. Also, save a damn tree. We need them. Water works better anyway.
I mean, honestly, if you got shit on your hands, would you just wipe it off with a dry cloth and say, yep, that's good enough?
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?